exciting to me. I like them. These are things that she likes. And they're also things that we're willing to do. No discussion is necessary to engage in acts and habits. Now, some couples have a little overlap, and I don't want to hear about what that looks like. I'm very well aware of what that looks like. Allison, Dirty Bird. You couldn't surgically remove the smile from her face. Dirty Bird. We don't need to talk about these things. These are things that we should be engaging in because there's no point of controversy. The question I get asked all the time is, how do I get my partner to expand their sexuality, to experiment, or to push things? And really what we're talking about, we're not talking about this, and we're not talking about this. Really what we're talking about is this, trying to expand the things that we're willing to do. Now, this can be very difficult because sometimes we can have somebody who is very conservative, very traditional, oftentimes religious, and they say, well, I have certain things that are acceptable to do and some things that are not. But your partner might not share those views and might want some more aggressive things. And I'm talking about things like
BDSM.
BDSM, exactly. Bondage, swinging, okay?
Yes.
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 I did two. There were two research projects I did when I was in Southern California. One was at a bondage club, S&M, sadism, and masochism. We're going to talk about those things in a second. The other one was at a swingers club. There were about 200 couples in each of the clubs every night. Well, not every night of the week, Friday and Saturday. Now, you would think, especially when it comes to sadism and masochism, we'll talk about those things, the bondage stuff, that this would be really aggressive and violent, and it's not. It was actually, both of these clubs had, because there were very strict rules. Before you could enter these clubs, you had to be invited in. And the first thing they did was give you a tour of the place and read you the rules. And both clubs, both environments, and it's not indigenous to the two clubs I went to, it's just the culture and the lifestyle that these people engage in, are extremely rule-based. First rule, no means no. You never have to repeat yourself with no. You know why? Because the management doesn't have to do anything. The people will kick you out. You gotta go. And you won't be allowed back in. So it's a very accepting culture in some of these places. Now, I know it sounds like I'm trying to talk you guys into doing these things. No, not at all. I'm just saying that when I do therapy, I don't want those to look like boobs too much. All right.
Too late.
It's too late. What I'm saying is, when we talk, if I'm having a discussion with my wife about trying to expand things that we do, once I cross the boundary of pushing her to do something that she is way beyond her comfort level, and let's say she agrees to do this and engages in that activity, and let's say it's something extreme, kind of like swinging, okay? Does anybody here not know what swinging is? It's when you invite another person into your bed, okay? And usually, oftentimes, with other couples, okay? There's whole terminology within the swinging culture. There's hard swap and soft swap. Soft swap means we're gonna kind of make out or engage in like oral behavior, but not penetrative vaginal sex. That's a hard swap, or a hard swap. So there's all kinds of rules and stuff. But once you pass, I get her to do something she's not comfortable doing, and she does that to make me happy, and afterwards she resents or regrets the fact that she did it, the potential is that she has resentment towards me. And I don't want that. I don't need that crowbar in our marriage. Okay? And there's almost a sense of indebtedness that I have to her now. And I don't need that either. I need this egalitarian, equal thing. So, I can resent her for the things that she's unwilling to do, or for me, or we can celebrate the things that we are willing to do, the overlap that we do have. So maybe the area we expand isn't this, maybe it's these things. Maybe we expand the things that are both exciting to us, that maybe we just be a little more willing to do those things. And sometimes it could be a thought without being specific. Like, ooh, that's kind of cool. I could never do that. Maybe it's going to a nudist beach. Maybe it's just something to help create some excitement. It's not about sex, but it's about excitement. Oh, that would be cool, but I'm my body the way it is. And then you go to, well, maybe we'll go to a nudist beach and we won't take our clothes off. We'll just be there, right? And then you go to the nudist beach and it's not supermodels. We had Black's Beach in San Diego when I was a kid. My brother pulled a prank on me. And the only way to get to Black's Beach in San Diego was to climb down a cliff. And I had a surfboard and I was 8 years old. And I did not know it was this new beach, and he and his buddies did. So I'm carrying the surfboard down. We get out on the breakers. There was nobody there. We got there early. We're sitting there on the surfboard, and I see an old couple jogging down the beach. Which kind of looked like he was still kind of sailing, right? Like the skin's flapping in the wind. I'm just kidding.
He must have been running really quick.
Yeah, I'm only serious. Anyway, so I'm sitting out there going, my brother and his buddies are laughing. And then the day started to progress and get later, and then they had volleyball courts. I didn't pay attention to that until people started playing mid-noon volleyball. That was interesting to watch. I don't think I rode one wave in that day. I just sat out on my surfboard for like 4 hours just watching the beach. But when you go to a new beach, my point is saying, when we're talking about going to a new beach, it's not all supermodels.
Right.
It's anybody.
It's a very group of people who are just kind of like to be nude out in public.
No thanks.
So maybe we go clothed the first time and we see, ooh, you know what, I don't feel so bad. I kind of feel like a supermodel compared to some of these people. And it's not about that, because believe it or not, nobody's walking up the beach going, It's not a bunch of creepers, because they're not allowed on the beach. They kind of get socially pushed out. And it's not that big of a deal. So maybe the next time we start expanding this area, maybe we try to go just topless. We'll just take off our tops and kind of walk on the beach a little bit. And we realize that's not so bad. And then maybe we try to go bottomless for a little bit. And we're not going to walk around, we'll just sit there. So it's kind of this systematic way to increase what becomes something that our willingness to do. So this can become this. And now we have a bigger piece of pie than we are dealing with. Coming in with a groaner. All right. Now, let's start. I'm going to erase this before I get fired. Here we go. All right. This is too late. It's already on tape. All right. We're all adults here, so we're talking. Now, let's talk about what can happen dysfunctionally. That's all important, because as we start talking about sexual dysfunction, we've got to know kind of what's normal and what's going on in people's heads. So as we start talking about different disorders, you understand where the disconnect lies in this process, because this is crucial when we're talking about sexual dysfunction. Well, we're going to talk about paraphilias for a minute. Okay, it's an area of specialty that I have. Paraphilia. This isn't a disorder, this is a category of sexual disorders or dysfunction. Paraphilia is defined as my source, give me your eyes for a second please, my source of this, the thing that really gets my motor running, the thing that gets me aroused, the things that gets me sexually excited is from a non-traditional sexual source. When I say non-traditional sexual source, I mean man, woman, man, man, woman, woman. Those are what we refer to as traditional sexual sources. Usually, inanimate objects, those are fetishes. So like a shoe fetish or a clothing fetish. I have had one plushophile in my career.
Really?
Okay, plush animals. And it's not that he had sex with the animal, I mean he did, but it's not, that was the end goal. But he enjoyed the sensation of the fuzzy animals, the stuffed animals. And that's what got him sexually aroused. Now, is that traditional? Certainly not. Here's the thing. Was it clinically a dysfunction? Bingo. If it impacted one of those areas. If I have a fetish, and my fetish, I don't. You probably do. Thanks. We know you, Dr. K. Yeah. if I had a shoe fetish and the source of my sexual arousal, I don't, was going home and waiting until my wife got home and sniffing her shoes.
Yeah.
Now, wait, if that is how I became aroused, is that a problem?
No.
It's weird.
As long as she doesn't have a problem. It was consensual. It's in my own house. I'm not going broke. It's not causing a problem between her and I. It's not affecting my ability to work. I'm not getting in legal troubles. It's not unhealthy, and I like it. So it's not personally distressful. It's completely fine.
Could it affect your health?
Until.
Could it affect your health? She's got mold in her shoe. I might not enjoy that smell. Now, here's the thing. If I'm waiting until Brenda at work gets up and goes to the bathroom to sniff her chair, yeah, we have a problem.
Yeah, that's a.
Okay? Yes, we have a problem. Because it's first of all, way creepy.
First of all.
Okay? I'm sure Brenda would have a problem with it if she knew what I was doing.
What if she?
And I'm gonna get fired.
Well, what if she did?
What if she did? I'm sure my work would have a problem. That's an HR issue. HR is getting called in on that one.
Yeah, that's true.
My point is you understand how just because something might be an odd source of arousal does not necessarily mean it's a clinical dysfunction. If it's not impacting my ability to function in life. Okay? So, that's what a paraphilia is. It's an odd source of these things. Now, what are some paraphilias? Let's talk about them specifically. Pedophiles. Necrophilia. Yeah, hold on. Let's stick with pedophiles. We've talked about this, but I want this on camera too. Huh? You did. Pedophile, my source of sexual arousal. There are 3 types of pedophiles.
Right.
Okay, we have pedophile itself refers to the source of my arousal or sexual stimulation is pre-pubescent children, usually before the age of 13. We have hebephilia. Hebephilia refers to pubescent children, usually 13 through 15, thereabouts.
Can you spell out?
Hebephilia?
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm over here struggling. I'm just like,
And then there's F hebephilia, which is EP and then that. F hebephilia refers to late pubescent children, usually 15 through 17 or 18. My source of sexual arousal. So there's 3 different categories of pedophilia.
The last was epiphilia?
F hebephilia. F hebephilia.
Okay. What do you see more? Do you see more paraphilia, or epiphilia, or epiphilia?
It is most commonly reported pedophilia. Why? Because it's the most socially unacceptable. There are a lot of cases. There's just a case where a guy it was a teacher. I don't know if it was high school. It was high school.
Yeah.
Was that you?
Yeah.
That was you. Okay. Say something.
She turned 16, they didn't, and then he left, like, when she turned 16.
Right.
They had contact, parents agreed that it was okay,
Right.
but since he was a teacher, he went to jail for it.
Right. Because he was in a position of authority and power over her. And he worked for a state institution. And she was a minor. Even though she was of legal age for consent, there were some other things other than the actual act of sex that caused the legal issue.
Right.
And did you know her?
Yeah, I went to school with them.
Okay, you went to school.
And then, kind of.
There were some other cases. It's not uncommon where you have teachers that get, and those are usually either hebephilia or it's usually F hebephilia, because it's usually 16 or 17-year-old kids that you see are running away with their teachers or having to get caught, right, in relationships with kids. Okay, and usually it's male to younger female, but there was a rash of female teachers in the 90s and early 2000s that were just knocking it out with their 15 and 17-year-old students. And I don't know about you or the guys that you hung around with that were 15 or 17, but secrets don't exist.
No.
No.
So especially you don't think a 17-year-old kid is going to have sex with his really good-looking teacher and not high-five everybody at that school, but the whole school is going to be quiet, right?
Yeah, okay.
But that's not a logical thought. They don't care about that. So, paraphilias. Let's talk about. So yeah, I mean, the list of paraphilias ranges dozens and dozens because it can be almost anything. Okay, it really truly can be most anything. Most paraphilias, okay, when it comes to like fetishism or an inanimate object, have to do with clothing. The great portion of clothing fetishism have to do with feet or shoes. Okay. Again, not a problem when I'm doing it consensually at home, but if I'm sticking my head under dressing room doors at department stores, we have a problem. If I'm sneaking into locker rooms to sniff towels or stuff like that, we have a problem. Okay. Again, is it consensual? Is it dysfunctional?
And when can, I mean, I guess, never mind, I just answered my other question in my head.
Bear with me. All right, we're going to start talking about some sexual disorders.
If we can get there. So,
Oh, no, I don't need this. I was going to see if I could give you a list of examples so you can. I'm going to put this up here. What? You don't want it up? Okay. I just want you to be able to see some of these.
I appreciate
That way you're not asking me to spell everything.
Yeah, that's why I appreciate it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, thank you. So, according to DSM-5, we have what we refer to as sexual and gender identity disorders. As this solidifies here, you'll see. So we're talking about gender identity disorder. Gender identity disorder is becoming more on the radar of a lot of people as a lot of teens and people in their early 20s go through. Yeah, that's fine. Is that okay?
yeah.
All right. As a lot of people go through, as the LGBT community becomes more publicly aware, becomes more publicly acceptable to talk about these things, gender identity disorder is where somebody is struggling with identifying their personal sexuality as male or female. Again, the difference between sex and gender. Sex is my primary sex organs, what I'm born with, penis, vagina.
Right.
But again, when you go to your primary care physician, they don't ask what gender you are,
Yeah.
because they need to know what physiological systems they're dealing with.
Right.
Okay, we have different plumbing men and women. Gender is what I identify as. I might be born male, but I identify as female. Okay, which is a huge debate socially right now on the bathroom issue and the locker room issue, and should teenagers who are identifying with gender identity disorder be allowed to go through gender reassignment surgery? I have my own clinical opinions that don't have anything to do with personal opinions because I don't really care personally. My clinical opinion is I think that should not be allowed. You're taking somebody, you're asking a 14, 15, or 16-year-old to make a life-altering, irreversible procedure on, again, you're putting that on a teenager who themselves are not able to. We're barely legal to understand what sex is. They're in a period of time where they're discovering their own sexuality. Again, you're gay, great. You're straight, great. You're bisexual, great. You're transgender, awesome. But making a life-altering thing, like going from, like, you can go from male to female with transgender surgery. That can be done in one procedure. Okay? Take a penis, slice it, tuck it back under, reassign the stimulating nerves, the nerves that stimulate pleasure in the penis, and they can reassign those to around where the new clitoris would be, and sex can still be pleasurable, maybe not as before. Women can rarely, if ever, go from female to male in one procedure. It's usually multiple procedures.
Yeah.
Well, you have to create one, and it's usually a very undersized phallus or penis that is produced, and sexual pleasure is usually greatly reduced. However, women who undergo the procedure from female to male say that being the new male is far more satisfying than having a sizable phallus or even extensive sexual pleasure. They find it that they're like, that's fine, I can live with that, that's cool. I couldn't live the other way. It's more important to be representative physically of who I feel like than it is to engage in a pleasurable sexual activity. Not that they can't have pleasurable sexual activity. All right, so these two right here are important. Sexual interest or arousal disorder. So we have arousal disorder in men, and we have arousal disorder in women. Again, I want you to come back to the sexual response cycle. I don't desire or have an interest in sex. Doesn't bother me. I could be forever and totally cool. Don't need it. As opposed to people who we have male and female orgasmic disorder, which is love sex, want sex, need sex. I just can't get quite there. Now imagine how frustrating that would feel. I want pizza, need pizza, it's great, it's right there. But I'm eating it, but I can't taste it. See?
When you got
Yeah.
a cold and your taste buds go
It's an
away.
itch you cannot scratch with any relief. So imagine how that would come out symptomatically, behaviorally. Okay?
So,
Oh, yeah.
So wait, for that sexual interest arousal disorder in men and women, you're saying that there are certain people that just don't want sex ever? That's
They
part of
just,
the
yeah, they
disorder?
don't, it doesn't bother them. Now,
Is that like an
which,
actual
if you're,
disorder?
hey, if you're single, cool. But if you're married and this develops into your marriage, you're gonna
Okay.
have a problem when your partner has, especially, a growing desire for sex. Not uncommon.
So, would an example be, I know from a TV series like Big Ben and Sheldon? That
Yeah.
would be an example?
He has no interest in it. It's just not on his radar. It's not even that he doesn't find it pleasurable, because when he finally did engage in sex with Amy Fowler, right? When did they have sex? On her birthday.
Yeah.
That's his birthday present to her. Oh God, it's that time of year already, right? But the episode where he did, he goes, wow, he goes, I've really been missing out. It's not that, but it didn't drive him to behave differently next time. It's not like the next day he went, hey, let's do that again. He goes, no, next birthday. Yeah, so it would very much be in this range.
So what about when you're single? It's like just normal?
Again, a lot of women who go through menopause and who are single, and even if they're not single, a lot of women who go through menopause have a decreased drive for sex.
What about when you're younger? Like say,
It becomes more
Early
problematic
20s.
when you're younger. Yeah, because at 20 you should have a higher sex drive, absolutely.
because there is somebody that I know, like normally I would just be like, okay, like you're not interested, but there is a high distaste in this person, like they don't think about it. They don't really even know about it because they choose not to.
No,
See,
that's
I'm
not this.
sure-
That's this. Sexual aversion disorder. That is where I go out of my way to avoid sex, intimacy, sexuality, that anything in that cycle, I'm gonna have an aversion to it. It's kind of like, sorry to be so party-ish on the mentality. Have you ever had so much of one kind of alcohol, you can never have that kind of
Yes.
alcohol again?
Yes.
Or you ate so much of one food, or you had an experience with your senses where you just smell something and you're like, oh!
Yep.
So eggs, you go out of your way to avoid like eggs. Ugh, that's an aversion to eggs.
Jaeger.
Or an aversion to Jaeger,
Yeah,
right?
that's how you say
Jaeger.
it.
That's a commercial. You ever wake up in the bushes with your keys in your butt? Jaeger. All right. So, yeah. Oh.
Do we need to write this one?
Yeah, don't write that.
That's what it says, right?
No, I'm talking about,
Sexual aversion disorder. Yeah, I want you to understand there's a difference. One is just, no, it's not that I'm averse to it, I just don't care about it, right?
Is this healthy? Like you said, this is disorder.
Always-
So does that mean it's not healthy?
Always, 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 to answer all of those questions, ask, is it impairing functioning in one of those 6 areas? There's some people who go, I'm averse to sex. Do you have to have sex to survive?
no.
No. If you want sex and you're not having sex, or I have a sex drive and my wife has a low, or she has arousal disorder, then we have a problem because it's going to cause a problem interpersonal.
Right.
Again, always ask, is it impacting one of the 6 areas? All right, we're gonna move on. Again, I don't have an interest in it. I am going out of my way to avoid it, okay? When it comes to hypo, remember, hypo is not enough, hyper is too much, hypoactive sexual desire. This is where I have some sexual desire, but it's not near what normal is.
What is the numbers on the side?
Those are just diagnostic codes. This is for me. These are for doctors to say, okay, 302.71. It's not like I bill insurance and they know if it's a covered code or not. Don't worry about that stuff. We have some neurological conditions that I want you guys to know. Dyspareunia has to do with painful sex. So I want sex, I'm aroused, but the nerve endings around the penis or vagina are so sensitive that especially any kind of genital contact is extremely painful, which makes penetrative sex almost unconscionable.
Ooh.
There,
Yes.
for the I can't say
Vaginismus.
vaginismus. I've actually saw a video about that where like some women could not, like they couldn't self-pleasure, they couldn't do anything because it hurt.
Well, vaginismus, let me tell you what vaginismus is. Vaginismus is painful contractions of the vagina. The vagina contracts, and it's kind of like spastic, and it's extremely painful. So, of course, that's what happens when we engage in sex, right? So, sex is often. There's another condition, it's called vulvodynia, that's not on here. Vulvodynia is where the vulva is, it's a lot like these two. It's extremely painful. The rubbing, touching, even clothing, non-sexual contact becomes very difficult. And there's different things you can do when you have surface pain like that. So they have like a female cup, like an athletic supporter, like a jock, that pulls the clothing away from the area so that when you sit and it's just clothing doesn't rub down and cause that discomfort all day. Okay? So dyspareunia, vaginismus, and vulvodynia have to do with painful associations with sex. And people who have that obviously really don't have a desire to engage in sexual activity. Okay? Erectile dysfunction, male erectile disorder. Now, we have qualifiers. I don't need you to pay attention to this too much. We have qualifiers that will say, okay, well, I have erectile dysfunction due to a general medical condition. Like I have hypertension that is causing that. Most disorders that we talk about, it's important to know that there's some other medical thing causing this other than just anxiety or drinking. Because we have qualifiers that will say, like, due to a medical condition. There's some that will say due to substance abuse. Like, I'm having erectile dysfunction, but it's because I'm drinking heavily or I'm doing drugs. Okay? And oftentimes we'll say not due to a general medical condition. Okay?
A male can have dyspareunia?
Yeah, we feel stuff on our penis, believe it or not.
Well,
We have
I mean,
pain sensitive.
yeah.
Like,
Female, look, dyspareunia has to do again with the nerve endings in the genitals are extremely sensitive, or especially to touch or pain. So this would be like the head of the penis is like, we can't touch it, or we can't, when it becomes engorged, those blood vessels, right? Vasodilation, everything gets pushed and kind of mushed and becomes hypersensitive. Usually in a good way, but this time in a very bad way because they're, instead of feeling pleasure, they feel pain,
Oh, yeah.
right? Yeah.
I saw that.
So, see we have right here, substance-induced sexual dysfunction, okay?
So with the, is it dyspareunia?
Dyspareunia.
Can you take medication to adverse?
Oftentimes, yeah, see there are things where we engage in like we engage in, that's where we go from non-demand pleasuring to demand pleasuring. Now, I'm here and I have dyspareunia or I have some kind of painful, either an arousal disorder or I have painful sex. Just because my genitals are painful doesn't mean everywhere is painful. So demand pleasuring means you're not allowed to do anything to me I don't ask for. Rub my shoulders, rub my feet, maybe rub the inside of my thigh. Give me a massage in the lower back, kiss my neck. I mean, that's where demand pleasuring kicks in. Well, this doesn't feel good, and oddly enough, that's where both men and women got news for you. We like to just kind of go for it. So this is where going for it causes pain, and I don't like doing those things. Arousal disorder, maybe that's the problem. Is I have women say all the time to me, I wish my husband would touch me without it being sexual. Stop grabbing my boobs every time you hug me. Stop grabbing my butt. I'm more than just these things.
Right.
I'm right here, kiss me, kiss my neck, rub my shoulders, rub my feet. There's other parts on my body than just my genitals. Okay? And men go, hey, no, all I am is genitals. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. So when we talked about, like I talked about gender identity disorder, we have to specify, is this in children, adolescents, or not otherwise specified? Yeah.
What were you saying about the substance induced? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, just that we have substance induced. This is usually, I'm doing drugs, so I'm having a lack of arousal. I'm having either maybe even hypersexuality, which was taken out, or I'm experiencing some type of dysfunction during sex as a result of the drugs. Now, this can be a prescription, but usually is illicit or illegal.
Transvestic?
Fetishism. Yeah, we're going to talk about these now. The paraphilias. This is the list of paraphilias. So, exhibitionism. If I'm an exhibitionist,
You like
these,
it?
keep in mind, this is all coming back to the sexual response cycle. What's an exhibitionist?
Where you get too excited.
Naked.
Where you have
No. There's something specifically that arouses me. What?
I want to be watched.
I want to be watched.
Yep.
I want to be watched. Now, this can be something as simple as I enjoy a group of people watching me maybe do like a striptease. That's very arousing. I like being watched. I'm the center of attention here. It could end up in I like people watching me engage in sexual activity. Any form of sexual activity.
So outdoors, people doing sex outdoors.
Yeah, it could be sex outdoors. Another form of exhibitionism is flashing. Oops. Flashing. Look at that, right? Kind of that. That's flashing. It's a form of exhibitionism. There's a form of arousal associated with this. Again, stimulation, excitement, arousal. And not always that I have to engage in sexual activity, but it's arousing to me to do that. We've talked about fetishism,
Yeah.
frauderism.
I remember.
This is one of the more creepy ones, right? Frauderism is my source of sexual arousal is I go to very public places, very crowded places like a bus, a subway, a sporting event, and I rub up non-consensually, rub my genitals against other people. It's arousing to me. There's no really kind of consensual way to do that in public places with people you don't know. Pedophilia we've talked about. S&M. This is where the term S&M comes from, sadism and masochism. There's a very distinct difference here. We refer to bondage all the time, and yes, it falls into that category, but sadism is my source of arousal is inflicting
Pain
pain
on somebody.
or dominating another individual. Masochism is